So I am going to show you how you would gather the bottom panel and attach it to the exercise piece that where the fish eye darts are going to go on. To create a gathering, you need double lines of stitching, one 1/4 of an inch away from the raw edge, and the second one is just above the seam line, or just to the right side of the seam line in this case. The stitch line is number 4 or number 5, and you start from the beginning, adjusting the stitch length and aligning your raw edge with the 1/4 inch seam guide on the throat plate. Once you have everything in place, you will just start stitching at 1/4. Alright, and that's gonna be my first line. Once you're done, raise your foot and your needle and leave a thread tail of about 2 inches or so, and then you're gonna start the second stitching line, gathering line, the same gauge, 4 or 5, and what you're going to do is you're going to start stitching right in within the seam allowance from your seam line, your traced seam line. Okay, so you will end up with 2 lines that will help you pull the thread and create gathering to shrink your fabric piece to the size of the hem allowance of the mini dress piece. Okay, I'm done, so I am going to raise my needle and leave a thread tail. Alright, when now I have the 2 stitching lines, I will pull either the top thread or the bottom thread. Don't pull both, either the top or the bottom, and that will help you gather. If you pull both, you will lock your stitches and you won't be able to gather. Right, so you will pull the thread and move towards the center point. The center point in this case is the fold line. Right, so I have the crease of the fold line that indicates where the center point is, and I am pulling the thread and distributing my gathers as even as possible to my eyes. I did one side, so I am going to pull the thread on the other side of the top thread. Okay. And I am going to pull the top thread and distribute my gathers until I get to the center, just like I did with the other side. Okay, and I will proceed to distributing my gathers as evenly as possible. Right now, this is the wrong side of the fish eye exercise piece, and this is the wrong side of the gathers piece. So I'm gonna go right side to right side, so the side that doesn't have the tracing, and I will align seam allowance edge with seam allowance edge. Alright, and seam line to seam line, and I'll put my first pin. Okay, and I'll do the same thing on the other side. So the first part of the seam allowance of the first part doesn't need to be gathered. Okay, the gathering is happening from seam line to seam line, and also I have a pin that's indicating where the center of the gather piece is, and I need to match that with the center of the dress piece. Okay, so it's gonna be center to center. So this is the center of this one, and this is the center of, looking for, okay, and this is the center of this one. All right, so I'll match the two centers and I'll put another pin in place and remove the marking pins. All right, okay. So size wise they are the same size. Once I have that in place, I will wrap my thread around my pin to prevent the fabric from stretching any further. I'll pull this side a little bit, and then I will wrap my thread around my pin to prevent the stretching. And then from there I can proceed to kind of visually distribute the gathering as even as possible to the best of my ability. And I'll do that on both sides. So this area has more gathered, this area has less, so I will take some of the condensed area to the area that doesn't have as much. So in this case I'm trying to distribute my gathering as even as possible. Once I have that done, I can now take the two pieces to the sewing machine, and I'll change my stitching length to number 2 again, and I will proceed to attaching the two pieces together as a straight seam. So I will use the 1/2 inch seam guide and my traced line to take few stitches, back stitch, and then I'll remove my pin and take my thread away, the thread loops, and I am matching the two edges together, and I will be stitching right behind my gathering line, so that I keep my gathering area or gathering stitch lines within the seam allowance, not visible on the outside of the garment. Okay, so I am adjusting the seam allowances so that they are matching with each other at the raw edge, and I am stitching to permanently stitch both pieces together. And I am at the midpoint right now. I'm doing the same thing. You can use your seam ripper to distribute your gathers, and also as your kind of third finger to feed the fabric to the machine. Once you get to the end, you are going to backstitch and trim your thread. Okay, and also you will trim all the excess thread that you don't need anymore, so that your sample is nice and clean. So I don't need that. Alright, and I don't need this. And both of the pieces are attached to each other permanently now. Any thread that is showing on the right side needs to be trimmed. Right. And you will end up with the gathered piece attached to the hemline of the dress. Also, you can follow the instructions of the fisheye dart available to you on Blackboard to sew these two darts. And this is how you attach, create a gathered piece and attach it to a seam. That's it. Thank you, and see you in the next one.